Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today's video is going to be on why your gallbladder is inflamed. Why is it painful? Why does it hurt? We're going to talk about the root physiological reasons why that may be. Again, please smash that like button. Really helps the search algorithm. Put your comments down below. Let me know what you've done in the past to help support and heal your gallbladder function. So first off, where's your gallbladder? So if you're on your body, if you're looking at yourself, your right side, that rib area right here, right tucked underneath is going to be your gallbladder, right underneath your liver there. Typically, there's a test where you would typically breathe in and then breathe out, and you would press your fingers up into that area. That's called Murphy's sign. If there's actually pain up there, that's a sign that the gallbladder may be inflamed. So your gallbladder's main physiological role is to concentrate bile. It concentrates bile 15 to 20 times more than what your liver would do. So if you were to snip your bile off, or if you were to snip your gallbladder off, bile would drip from that common hepatic bile duct in the liver, which then would go to the gallbladder. You snip it, so now it's just dripping upstream, and it's just constantly dripping. Now, the benefit of having a gallbladder is it's going to concentrate that bile. It's going to make it really strong, and it's going to be able to contract and release that bile when fat and food is released from the stomach into the small intestine. So what happens is you have all this acidic chyme. Think of chyme as just kind of a laundry machine of mixed up food in your stomach with all the acid in there. That's going to then get drained into the small intestine from the stomach, and that acidity is going to trigger that cholecystic kinin release, CCK, and that's going to cause the gallbladder to contract, and that's punctuating it, meaning it's happening right when that food is in the small intestine ready to be broken down. Where if you didn't have that gallbladder, it would more than likely just kind of drip all the time, and you wouldn't have that punctuated release to really help with that fat digestion. So cholecystic kinin is produced, gallbladder contracts, that bile is then released. The goal is now you're going to start to be able to break down that good fat. It's going to emulsify. Think of it as Dawn soap on the greasy bacon pan. It's going to help break it down. And also bile, it's a bile acid. It's slightly acidic. And so it also has a natural antimicrobial effect. So it's going to actually knock down some of the bugs in your small intestine as well, which is very helpful. It's going to knock down some of the microbes. That's going to start to move the needle, because if you have poor bile flow and low acidity from the stomach, there's a good chance that you are actually going to have SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You're going to have the microbes overgrowing in the intestinal tract because you have low acid, you have low bile production. And then if you have food allergens coming in there, that's a big one too. So now with gallbladder issues, you can have gallbladder issues for a couple of root cause reasons. Females are really prone. High levels of estrogen dominance makes the bile more sludgy. And the more sludgy that bile is, the more the flow is decreased. The more the flow is decreased, the more chance you have those bile acids turning into bile crystals and crystallizing and forming a stone. And when that gallbladder contracts, when you start to have crystals and stones in there, it's like giving that porcupine a big hug, and it's like, ooh, that's prickly, that hurts, that's inflammatory, and that can start to inflame it. Number two, if you eat a low-fat diet, think of bile. It's constantly flowing. It's like changing the oil in your engine. And if you let it sit there too long, it gets sludgy and dudgy. Well, same thing happens with bile. If you don't eat the fat that triggers that release of bile, that bile starts to form bile crystals, and crystals eventually turn into stones. Think of it as the making the snowman and making the snowball, and you roll it and you roll it, starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what happens with bile acids, bile crystals, and then bile stones. And then that's the hugging, the porcupine effect that happens again there. Eventually you contract that gallbladder because you're eating some fat, and then you're going to inflame it again. So that's the other mechanism. We may also see issues in regards to food allergens. So some common food allergens we see with gallbladder issues: pork, coffee. We may also see it with things like sauerkraut, cabbage, nut seeds, turkey, citrus. These are some common foods that we see there be a connection with. And I'll pin something in the comments below, an article I did a few years back on some of those more common offending foods. I kind of just gave you a good summary of the top ones there now. But even if you're someone on a paleo template, you may be like, hey, what's wrong with some bacon? What's wrong with some coffee? What's wrong with some cabbage or sauerkraut? What's wrong with some citrus, right? What's wrong with some turkey? Yeah, sometimes there could be some issues with some of those foods inflaming the gallbladder. And if it is, you want to cut that out to kind of help the inflammation come down. And so we look at high levels of estrogens. We may look at the inadequate levels of stomach acid as well, because we need nice levels of stomach acid to cause that chyme, all the mixed up food in the stomach, to lower the pH. That nice low pH causes the food in the small intestine to hit, and then it triggers that cholecystokinin release. Okay. So we have high levels of estrogen, low fat diets, inadequate levels of hydrochloric acid and enzymes. I would say big food allergens like the pork, like the coffee, but then we have common offending ones like gluten, uh, dairy with casein and lactose in there. Of course, your processed foods, your refined sugars, your junky polyunsaturated fatty acids, your PUFAs. And I would say on top of that, one more thing would be SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. If you have a lot of bad bugs in your intestinal tract, that's of course going to also feed forward and lower the stomach acids. It's going to inflame the gut. It's going to make it harder to have good motility, because the gases produced by the bad bacteria, the methane and the hydrogen, may throw off motility and cause you to have diarrhea or be on the constipation side. And also, inadequate levels of gallbladder function, low bile, you may see an increase in steatocrit on your stool test. So one of the markers that we look at for maldigested fat or inadequate gallbladder function is we'll look at high levels of steatocrit greater than 10 or even greater than 5. We'll look at the stool kind of having the extra skid marks or streak marks or excessive wiping, more than 3 wipes on average, is a sign that you have a lot of fat in your stool. That's why it's difficult to wipe in just a few wipes. And then I would say also, does your stool float? Or clay colored or blonde. Sometimes stools can float if you eat a lot of fiber. Like if you eat a big salad, there may be enough fiber in there to cause it to float. But we want to really look at, is there a lot of maldigested fat in there that's causing the stool to float? These are all really important questions we want to look at and really get our arms wrapped around what's the root cause. And so if I kind of recap it one more time, okay, we have estrogen dominance, high levels of estrogens. Now that could be from beta-glucuronidase and bad bacteria too, right? Because beta-glucuronidase is produced by the bad bugs in the gut, and that actually takes estrogen that's ready to get detoxified and it releases it back into the body, right? So we have high levels of estrogen, which can feed forward into the gut, can feed forward into that. We have low fat diets that can feed into it. We have food allergens like gluten, processed food, and then all the healthier paleo ones, pork, coffee, citrus, right? Sauerkraut, other ones. Inadequate levels of hydrochloric acid, that's a big one there as well. And then we talked about SIBO, bad bacterial overgrowth. This could be Citrobacter, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, H. pylori. These are all common ones. H. pylori also lowers stomach acid. So you can see I kind of listed out 5, but some of them actually feed forward and cause other ones too. So it's like you have the right to have more than one issue going on at the same time, right? These mechanisms are a little bit complex, and it's kind of like a spider web. You hit one side of the web, well, you're going to move the other side a little bit too, right? They all kind of interplay with one another. So I hope that makes sense. Again, you got to have good fat digestion. If you don't have good fat digestion, you're not going to have good cell membrane health, because every single membrane of your cell has a lipid bilayer, and you need to create that healthy lipid bilayer with good fats, ideally good healthy animal saturated fats. If we do monounsaturated fats, cold pressed olive oil, high quality avocado oil, be careful on the excess omega-6s. The processed omega-6s like your canola, your soy, your safflower, you really want to keep those down to a minimum, because it's going to make a very oxidized cell membrane. It's going to deplete your antioxidant reserves like vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A. You're going to have to use a lot of antioxidants to stabilize those cell membranes, because there's so much oxidative stress happening. And all oxidative stress means is you're losing electrons. And when you lose electrons, your body has to take other compounds that are able to give away their electrons to stabilize the cell. And those are going to be antioxidants. Antioxidants means anti-loss of electron. So it's going to help bring over and help donate those free electrons to stabilize the cell. And that's kind of what we're looking at there. I hope that makes sense out of the gate. And if you enjoyed today's video, that is awesome. I really appreciate it. And what I would say out of the gate here is feel free, click down below. You can reach out to myself and we can schedule a consult if you like. And I'm happy to help. There'll be information down below where you can schedule a time to chat. Again, Dr. J here signing off. Take care. Bye.